Welcome to Leading Organizations That Matter, a podcast about leadership, organizational culture, and how we find meaning and purpose in our work. I'm your host, Ray Spadoni, former healthcare CEO, current consultant, author, and speaker. Today's topic is what the Beatles and Alec Baldwin can teach us about management. Inspiration can, and often does, come from the most unexpected places. For example, I've been watching the Get Back documentary about the waning days of the Beatles as they recorded Let It Be and were preparing for their first live performance in years. I also recently listened to a podcast interview with Alec Baldwin, who is discussing what it's like to direct full-length feature films. Now, please note that this interview was recorded before his recent troubles on the set of the film Rust. In Get Back, we are treated to a unique and fascinating look at how the Beatles created music. It was sausage making at its very best, as the process wasn't often pretty. The sailing was frequently not very smooth, and the musical harmony was only periodically matched by some measure of actual harmony between the four fractured members of the greatest musical group in history. For someone who does not make music, I had always assumed that a writer or writers would bring a finished product, or at least one close to finished, to the studio, and then the band members would take that blueprint and bring it to completion. But in the case of the Beatles, and as I've learned, for most recording artists, the process is far less linear than that. The creative process extends beyond the writing and right into recording and even sort of real-time post-production. It's a very iterative process, and it requires the participation and contribution of others to help produce a finished work. In the Alec Baldwin interview, he stated that the hardest and most important part of the directing process is casting. If you get the right people in your cast, then every single aspect of what then follows will be easier and better. And those cast members will contribute to the creative process as well, creating script revisions, alterations to character development, and sometimes bring about whole-scale changes that result in a different but better movie. Again, it's a very iterative process. When I think about the highlights of my management career and the very best teams I've been part of or had the privilege of leading, I recall the fact that there was a great deal of interactivity and iterating taking place in the creative process. Decision making allowed for some give and take, and though I was the CEO and often called upon to make the final decisions, there were many times when some of the members of my cast had feedback that significantly altered my own thinking. Additionally, even in the teams where there was tension and conflict just below the surface, mutual respect and an environment that allowed for some measure of debate, public debate, often resulted in a far better end product. Now, I know that leading an organization is not the same thing as creating music or directing a film, but I do believe that the process of creating something worthwhile, memorable, and impactful can draw from these other examples. Thank you for listening. I hope that you'll consider leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or your platform of choice. That'll help others find us here. My mission is to help empower organizations that matter by supporting those who lead them. Please feel free to learn more about me and my work at redsailadvisors.com.